was 3 days before we actually went to Holland, because the weather over in Holland was so bad that we couldn't possibly find the dropping zone. We had to stay at 500 feet, so the orders were, and drop down to 50 feet over the field with a red cross on it. It was an actual fact, it was a racetrack near The Hague. That's all we got told about it. And quite frankly, that's all we wanted to know about it. It was, we weren't, as I say, we weren't absolutely, chin up with it sort of thing. We thought it was a little bit risky. Anyway, the day came on the Sunday, I think it was the Sunday, on the 29th, I remember the day, the date, the 29th of April, 1945. And they gave us the all clear to go, and we went out to the kite about 3 times before we actually took off. They said, yes, all right, we can go. So we went off with the 2 of us. And we went across the North Sea with no problem. And we found we did a map reading business to find the racetrack. We had been informed of the steeples, the church steeples, and anything that was sticking up very high, because we weren't too high. We were down lower than 500 feet. In fact, you could almost touch the rooftops. We did that because we wanted to get outside or under the radar of the Germans. Now, when we came across the coast, the Germans, we could see their guns pointing at us, and they followed us across the sky until we left, until we got out of sight. And the others, any time that we saw guns, they were following us around. So that didn't make us feel too happy about it, because you only wanted one slap-happy sort of, you killed my father last week, bang, sort of thing. And we wouldn't have stood much chance at all. And we knew this, that was the problem. We knew this, and it was a bit hairy. But we soon found the racetrack. That was no trouble. In fact, we could practically touch the roofs of the houses. That's how low we were. It was quite a unique idea for us to be that low over anybody's territory, sort of thing. So, and we dropped the food as we were told to. And they were in Hessian sacks in the Bombay. The Bombays were opened, the Hessian sacks were pushed in, and in the Hessian sacks was all sorts of tins of egg powder, flour, bags of flour, black chocolate, I do remember that. There was lots of things that could be used for food, obviously. And we opened the Bombays and dropped the food, and they bounced along the ground, and that was that. And the Dutch police were there to give it out afterwards, I suppose.
When I first was told the story of the Bad Penny, it was in its entirety, from the time of the food drop mission that the crew flew, the Bad Penny crew flew, to the story of 50 years later, a boy at the time of World War II now has immigrated to Canada, and he meets the crew and is very thankful to the crew for what they did by starting the food, because as anyone that knows the story of Operation Manna and what they call the Hunger Winter in Holland, it was a very stressful time for the people in Holland, the Dutch, because many were starving. But the whole thing, it comes full circle. You have a situation, you have a group that responds, and then you have, 50 years later, a thank you in person from people that were total strangers and have now come together, 50 years later, and are all very friendly and still very, happy that they've had a chance to meet together. And so when you hear the whole story and the context, it just said, this is a terrific opportunity to have a story made into, in my opinion, a children's book, and an illustrated children's book, not just write a story down and hope people can have it. So that was my first thought when I heard the story, was it had to be a children's book.
There was only 2 of us that went that morning very early. And in the afternoon, 250 planes took off from England and went over there to different places and dropped a lot of food, obviously. And they continued to do so for the next few days. We finished up with 6 trips. Although the first one was a little bit hairy, the rest of them were no problem at all.
Right.
And the people were absolutely marvelous. When they were told that we were coming over, not us particularly, but the British were coming over with this food, they were all out in the streets and on top of the buildings with flags. You never see so many flags in all your life. Where they got all the Union Jacks from, and they're the Dutch flags, it was absolutely amazing. I thought to myself, if the Germans see them with that lot, they'll kill them. But no, they got away with blue murder.
Well, you said
But
earlier,
a most pleasant job that we had to do. That really was.
for younger kids, younger children, particularly, they're very interested in picture books and storybooks. And if history could be somehow redefined in a very simple way, but yet with pictures, but tell the essence of the story, I think it'd be really relevant to try to teach history to younger generations this way. I remember in high school taking American history. You know, it was very, very dry. It's still probably that way today with all history. You know, you're given a textbook. Here's what happened. Here's the dates. These are important. Remember these dates. And so you remember certain things, and then you forget certain things. And you also probably come away, unless you're a historian already, you really don't appreciate the fact that history is really the thing that defines who we are at this present time in our lives. So if you could come out with a nice, much more simplistic, but yet, what's the word, identifiable possibly, way of teaching history, rather than just here, remember this, memorize this, and then just have it just a list, I think it would be a very unique way of presenting history, particularly to the younger kids. And if, of course, you teach history young, then they'll remember it longer.